All right. Hey guys. It's Chris here. Just finished my first full day of my Soma Breath retreat. Um, the first thing that I did yesterday, we just met and then had dinner. Didn't really do anything. But today was a full day. Got up, yoga at 7:30, followed by breakfast, followed by a workshop where we did a 2.5 hours of a breathwork session. Was pretty trippy, not gonna lie. And then after that, did some sauna rituals with alternating uh, hot sauna and cold plunges that really threw my body through a loop. Then took a break. Had to come back, take a nap to come down from that. Then had some snacks. Did some learning, just like some watching some videos about the material and talking about the material as a group. Then we broke for dinner, and after dinner came back, did my own personal meditations, uh, and went to sleep. Then woke up, read through some of the book that Niraj gave us on Wednesday. About a quarter of a way through it now, and then now I'm here doing my vlog before yoga for day 2. Um, Overall, it was a really good day. I had a lot of insights about myself. We redid the average peaceful day exercise, and Santa Muerte was happy with this one. The first time I tried to do a Soma Breath Awakening, and because part of the pre-work session is the average peaceful day. Sorry, actually, I'm going to go double check because I swear it's average perfect day, and maybe that's where I got up. Let me go check. Because maybe that was the big difference. Because today, Niraj was talking about average peaceful day. And in the book, it's average peaceful day. But I swear it was average perfect day in the 21-day awakening on the website. But I could be wrong. Pre-work lifestyle design. Oh yeah, average perfect day. So actually, I'm probably going to talk to him about that because that is a change that was really meaningful for me, and that he even talks about in his book. Is the move from average perfect day to average peaceful day. But yeah, the first time I did the pre-work, um, I wrote it all out, wrote down my average perfect day in quite detail, and I took it to the altar, was praying to SM, and she's like, no. And I was like, but I put so much work into this. What do you mean no? And I started crying, and she's like, absolutely not. And I'm like, none of it? And she's like, none of it. That really discouraged me from Soma. And any subsequent attempt, because it's like, well, I'm not going to retry this again because you clearly didn't like it. I'm just going to keep practicing the breath work and hope that this fixes itself out at some point. And this finally fixed itself out. So now that I know what the average day I'm manifesting is, I can actually go through the 21-day awakening now because I didn't have that before. Yeah, things that happen when your deity just says, no, you're wrong. Oh boy. Okay. So yeah, Soma's been pretty good so far. I want to continue today talking about my story. So last time I did childhood, so birth to Oakmont. And all this is leading to the rebirth ceremony that we're doing here in Soma. So my goal is to tell the story of the man I used to be and the loops that he was trapped in and what impacted his life, because I'm finally learning how to step free from them. So I mark childhood as my childhood ending when Nanny got married. Nanny, like I said last time, Nanny, one of the reasons Nanny and I bonded so hard was because she was my refuge from all of the traumatic abuse from Randy and the neglect from Greg. And she always took very good care of me and showed me love. Um, and she's the one that actually raised me. She's the one that had the birds and the bees conversation with me. She's the one that taught me how to ride a bike. She's the one that taught me how to clean a fish in the garage. She's the one that held me at night when I was a kid. Randy and Greg never did that. She was the only one in my life that would ever actually hold me. All of my good childhood memories were with her. And I knew she was lonely because, like I said, Dory dying had her hard bond to me to sort of fill the void in his life. And she always said she wanted a husband. And growing up as a kid, and I think the one thing that really made me feel betrayed by Nanny was that I always told her that I wanted to be in the wedding when she got married. And that was just like a really important thing because I always told her she'd get married again, and she never believed me. But if I was a kid, I was like, no, you're going to get married again. It's just something I knew. But when we were at the boat, she met Gene. And for reasons I'm going to go into, Gene is one of the few people who I truly believe deserves to burn in hell. And he deserves every bad thing that he's getting down there. Gene, his name was Gene Markham, started coming to the boat when I was in, it's like toward the end of 7th grade, somewhere around 7th, 8th grade. I was at Garfield. It was when I was still at Oakmont, but after Monroe. Garfield was the middle school in Hamilton, Ohio. And started coming with his wife at the time. His wife was in the end of a cancer fight and wasn't there for very long when she died. His first wife that he had all his kids with and everything. And I don't quite know how it happened. It was all we knew was his wife died. And then something like a month later, like it was ridiculously fast, like him and Nanny went and eloped in Indiana. None of us knew they were even dating. Neither us nor anyone in his family knew that he was dating someone. And they were like, Mom just died. and we were all like, what the fuck? I don't quite know how that happened. I still don't. Makes no sense. But her marriage to Gene is what put the end on our relationship. Or at least the end of my childhood. Gene had a lot of financial troubles. I think part of the marriage for him was just having a place to live. Without his wife's, there was some financial arrangement with his wife, and her death like stopped income, so he couldn't afford to like live in their house anymore. And he moved out into the country in Nanny's house. But part of it was he said he didn't want her to keep seeing me or him to keep seeing the granddaughter that he was with. And so he was like, no, we're both just going to make a fresh start together and not see our grandchildren anymore and take care of them like we've been doing it. And her, out of a sense of duty to follow the wishes of her new husband, agreed with that. So out of the blue, my refuge was gone. And that's when my childhood ended, was when she married Gene. I remember going with her once when she was helping Gene move out of his house in Hamilton. It was on the east side down there, and I just could not understand their relationship or what she saw in that man at all. Didn't make any sense. I just always had a bad feeling around him. But she married him, so we're all stuck with it. But yeah, it crushed me. About that, the Thanksgiving afterward, though, I could really tell how torn she was over the whole thing. That was a really rough Thanksgiving for me, too. No, sorry. That Thanksgiving was sixth grade because that was before Gene. Gene wasn't there that Thanksgiving. Yeah, that was sixth grade. Because John still had his bowl cut. Okay. So let's talk about the last Thanksgiving of my childhood before we move on to adolescence. This is the first time I'm really going back through this and talking about it. So I'm trying to make sure I'm correct on all the details and on the timeline. And I'm just stream of consciousness this here just to talk through my story. Someday I want to organize it better and flesh out some more details and put it into a book. But right now I'm just trying to get it out before my rebirth ceremony here at Soma. So that Thanksgiving, it's really what grilled in my perfectionism. I remember I woke up and the house was still a mess. We had thawed the turkey and put parquet, and Randy loved parquet, like that little parquet butter that was sold in the grocery store. I thought it was disgusting. Nana used Country Crock. Country Crock was at least palatable. No one used butter. And growing up, it was just all this margarine shit. But that's what we had. It was Ohio. Also, Nanny also used Velveeta cheese. And to this day, my favorite mac and cheese is just Velveeta mac and cheese made the way it says in the box, with just Velveeta, a little bit of milk, pepper, and macaroni. And that is what emotionally inside my body says this is the way mac and cheese is supposed to taste. The blue box is crap. And even when like I was at a friend's retirement party a few weeks ago, and he had very nice catering come in with like actual like white cheddar, like aged white cheddar, good mac and cheese. And I was eating it, and his husband came over and he said, "So how's the food?" I'm like, "The food's really good. I'm having a problem with the mac and cheese." He's like, "What's wrong with the mac and cheese?" I'm like, "You use real cheese. I'm used to the processed stuff." And he just started laughing. I'm like, I know. My complaint is that you actually use quality ingredients. That's not your fault. That's just how my taste buds are wired. Oh boy. That's how you know that you've got an emotional connection to a food, when you consciously know that you're eating the good stuff, but you want the processed shit, because that's what your emotions say tastes right. Uh, but anyway, back to this Thanksgiving. I wake up. Place is still a mess. Randy's cooking Thanksgiving, and the family's coming over to Oakmont for it. Randy just was trying to be the good super. There was the part of her that was trying to be the good super mom, was running at the start of the day. And like I said, with Randy, she just would alternate and whip between the two on a dime, and you never knew. So I'm in sixth grade, because this is before Gene. Gene was not at this Thanksgiving. And I get up, Randy's cooking. She starts telling me to start cleaning the kitchen and the living room upstairs. So I start doing that for the first part of the morning while she finishes cooking. John is downstairs watching TV, and Greg is in his computer room doing something. I have no clue what he did most of the time in that room. Just in his own little world. Yeah, Randy's cooking dinner. She's running a little bit behind, and she's getting stressed. I finish cleaning everything up as Brenda gets there. Brenda was her mother. Well, yeah, Brenda was her mother. She gets there. She brings this marshmallow and mandarin orange salad. I always hated it. I don't know why, but just however she made it, it was terrible. But it's the thing that she always made. So you got to sort of live with it. She brought that over, and she got there first. And then she just started ribbing Randy on, why isn't dinner ready? This doesn't look like you made it right. All these little nicks, while Randy's still scrambling, trying to do it all. Because she's just trying to do the best she can to make everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Because there's a part of her that genuinely wanted that. And then while she's arguing with Brenda, she looks at me and tells me to go get the plates out of the cupboard and set the table. She had special plates for Christmas and Thanksgiving. They were never used any other time. It was like custom china, but the decoration on them was little teddy bears acting out like various scenes. So it was like her bear plates. They were actually quite adorable. And there was a full set of them in the bottom of the china cabinet. So I went to the china cabinet, started getting that, started setting everything up, while Brenda was just nitpicking her in the kitchen. And then as I'm doing that, like the food's getting done, Nanny gets there. Nanny just brought broccoli and cauliflower and Jell-O. So Nanny did love John. And I knew she did, because she would make different foods for each of us. So for example, I loved broccoli. So I love cauliflower, and John loved broccoli. So she would always make cauliflower and broccoli together so that we each had the vegetable that we wanted. And like I'd eat some broccoli too, but I was just there for the cauliflower. And then I always loved green Jello, the lime Jello, and John loved red Jello. So, so she'd always bring the two colors of Jello, red and green, which just it happened to be Christmas colors, but we didn't plan it that way. But she'd always like whenever like was the two of us, she'd make both. Um, she never bonded as much with John. John was never at her house to the degree that I was. Um, like I said, for me, it was just a combination of I was so sick as a child, and Randy and Greg needed respite, and she needed to bond with someone, and John never had that with her. Um, but then Nanny came over. Things are winding down. People are getting ready to eat. But there's not enough dishes to go around, like to put all the serving plates on, because Randy in the kitchen was a fucking wrecking ball. She didn't clean up after herself. Things she would just use a plate, use a spoon, like keep cycling through. She used so many. She dirtied so many dishes just to cook. It was insane. So the sink was full. So she told me to do the dishes. Well, people were setting up. And like the kitchen is just like a little hallway. There's the stove here. Right behind the stove is the door to the garage and the downstairs. And then after you get the stove, you get like this little bitty counter. Then you get the sink and the dishwasher sort of like under there. But we didn't really use the dishwasher because it didn't really work. Then there was the counter above the dishwasher. And then you just had the dining room. So like there is just one main aisle, and that is the kitchen. And the refrigerator is right behind the sink. Like the entire kitchen is just like a galley kitchen, almost. Um, and so I started and the pile of dishes was really big, and I'm in sixth grade. So I reach over and I grab the sprayer just to try to make headway. I'm on my tiptoes, and she's walking behind me, and I grab the sprayer, but I grab it wrong, and it spurts out a little bit of water, and it hits her. And all of a sudden, that completely triggers her. Like, completely. She goes into a full meltdown and just starts screaming at me in front of everyone and tells me to go sit on the porch. No jacket. And so while I'm out on the porch, they all start eating Thanksgiving dinner. And the door is wide open because you can see the table from the porch through the screen. They all start eating, go through the serving and everything. Well, I'm just out on the porch crying until I can't cry anymore. After, I don't know how long it took, but I looked in and Nanny was, she was hitting her limit. Um, she started saying something to Randy, and Randy was clearly pissed. And then she got up from the table and went back through the line and made a plate. And then brought it out to me and then sat down on the porch so I could have Thanksgiving dinner. And I could tell she was making it and walking out. Randy was just furious. And Greg was just sitting there looking like this. And she was staring at Greg, saying, like, as if to say, like, do something, stop your mother. And Greg's just sitting there, like, trying not to do anything. Oh, such a complete waste of a man. Dude had no fucking balls whatsoever. So fucking pathetic his entire life. I don't know how I came from his genes at all. Honestly, to be fair, I'm not entirely sure I did. A completely separate conversation. Um, such a fucking pathetic man. Uh, but then after Nanny came out and I started eating, she sent. That's when she sent John over to come tell me I could come back inside. Because all of a sudden, like, she had been defied and it was over. And like the entire thing was interrupted because she can't go on with Greg's mother sitting out on the porch with me. But that was Randy. And I came back in. It was really awkward. And then Brenda tried to break the ice by talking about uh, some small talk thing she had read in Women's World magazine. It was barely successful. I remember I went home with Nanny after that, though, because we always had dinner on Friday. They all worked on Thursday. They were blue collar, so for us, Thanksgiving dinner was always actually on the Friday after because that's when they were actually off because they worked Thursday. So I went home with Nanny after that night. I didn't come back until Sunday night after church for school the next morning. But yeah, that was the last Thanksgiving of my childhood. The smallest tiny mistake is complete will lead to complete ostracization. I'm sure I'm mispronouncing that. It is 5:30 a.m. here in Austria, and my sleep schedule is still fucked. Oh boy. So yeah. So now back to adolescence. Um, Nanny marries Jean. Going to her house ends, and then I'm just trapped there. Randy, at this point, because of her because the doctors just start giving her whatever pill she wants. This is peak opioid time. This is in the mid 90s, mid to late 90s. Eighth grade is kind of just a blur. I remember I was at Garfield. I remember Mr. Dickinson, my band teacher, was a jerk. I remember it was just a struggle to survive. Whenever I'd come home from school, Randy would just start a ritual. I don't know when it was her drug timings or whatever, where she would just start hitting me and daring me to hit her back so she could call the cops on me. They moved me out of the room I shared with John at the time upstairs and just put my bed in a corner in the basement. There wasn't a wall. It was just like a corner next to the living room where the TV and the sofa was. And that was just kind of my room. It was just cold and damp. Right next to the laundry room where the dog would pee. Where if I had to hide for, because he'd pee in the pile of clothes and then he'd pee on the cement in the laundry room. That's where he would pee while we were at school, and no one was there to let him out. Unless like they chained him up outside and he was just chained to a peg in the backyard and couldn't go anywhere. The whole dog thing was another cruel trick. She supposedly got it for me as a gift for me so I would have a friend, but then she never let me feed it. And she insisted on feeding him herself. So the dog bonded with her, and it was supposed to be my dog that I was responsible for that didn't even like me. I tried. Just always, just such a fucking stupid dog. Like when Miss Kitty, the cat, had her kittens, uh, Spot ate a couple. She had kittens. It was like the most beautiful thing I ever had was like when Miss Kitty had her kittens. It was so cool, like seeing her go through the birth process and then birth them underneath the like a little cupboard in the upstairs, like formal living room. And like watching the little kittens grow up and open their eyes for the first time and mew and crawl over everything and like try to learn how to do stuff. It was really beautiful. But I just remember like they all died except for one. One morning I woke up and Spot had found one, and I woke up and there was like a kitten carcass flayed open where he had just eaten the innards out of it and left the carcass right in front of my bed. That was the first thing I woke up to that morning. The only one of her kittens that survived was the one we gave away. All the other ones died. Another cat that was her kitten that lived the longest. His name was Yappy. He was a black cat. Well, she was a black cat, but he was black. Really sweet. I loved Yappy. But one fall, he got fed some antifreeze. It was poison or somewhat. I don't really know what happened. Randy said it was a neighbor. I don't really believe her. Not after what happened later. But I loved Yappy. But somehow he got fed a poison and died. And then Greg didn't want to bury him because it was the fall. The ground was hard. So he put Yappy in a plastic bag and put him in the meat freezer downstairs in the back of the laundry room. And he was there for until I got kicked out. So at least 2 years. So whenever I had to go like get the meat she wanted to thaw for dinner that night or whatever, I'd have to go move the corpse of the cat that I loved around so I could go get the meat that she wanted because Greg didn't want to bury it. It was just in the freezer for years. School wasn't that much better. Socially, there was just so much against me. I couldn't really relate to kids at all. I really couldn't connect. And Garfield had this stupidest fucking policy that I hated. The way they split it up was lunch was 2 periods, but each period was split into half. So half your lunch period was in the cafeteria eating, and then when you switched, half the kids went over to the gym for what they called lounge. That was pretty much like the social period in middle school. But in order to get into the lounge, you literally had to, like, the gym teacher would stand there and all the kids would have to give him a dime in order to get in every day. And if you didn't have a dime, you had to go sit against the bleachers. I never had the money. Both years at that school, 7th and 8th grade, every day after I'd eat lunch, because I was in the first half of the cafeteria group both years. When all the other kids were socializing and talking and playing, I'd have to go just sit alone by the bleachers that were folded and pushed into the wall because I couldn't pay the gym teacher the money to go and do that. So yeah, my socialization got very stunted. If I ever meet that man again, I'm going to deck him across the face and break him because I understand how horrible that fucked me now. And oh, he deserves it. Fucking asshole. Yeah. That was middle school. I do remember, though, in middle school, I don't know, it was weird. I had a crush on a girl, but it wasn't physical attraction. She was. I'm blanking on her name, but I can still see her face. I just looked at her, and for some reason, I saw Randy, And for some reason, there was like a mental or like emotional attraction, even though I was not physically attracted to her in any way. And I think I even went with her like to a dance. Um, like I never really wanted to kiss her, but I was like, I said I did because that's what I'm supposed to say. And it's like, but I never really wanted to, and I never did. Um, there's even another girl that I was like mildly infatuated with, but it was weird. It's like part of me likes having them around because I didn't really have friends. I didn't have any socialization. Like I said, like between being sick and all the moving in elementary school. Like I said, Garfield was the first year I was at a school for more than 1 year. Um, I don't remember all the places we lived like individually, but it was constant moving because it like every single year was a new school, often a different school district, between bouncing around between Harrison, Talawanda, Hamilton. It wasn't like I just wasn't in the same place ever because of how often they moved. So like I didn't have any permanent friends. I had no long-term like neighbors, friends. Um, Massive emotional issues from what was going on. Locked in hell during sixth grade. Couldn't socialize during the lounge period. I could not just like put a bigger wrench for child social development than what I was through. I mean, I'm older now. I've taken the psychology. I I know how fucked up that was, and it really was never my fault at all. Was never my fault. All the fucking adults in the room failed. Story of my life. Well-meaning, well-educated idiots, or just a stupid fucking adult. Remember, I tried wrestling in eighth grade and I liked it. It was like the first sport that I did, and they started like picking me up from school to do it. I also did. I tried cross country back when in fifth grade. It was called, and it was like a jogging club. It was like Stewart Striders or whatever. It was like the name of their jogging club, and I think Mr. Connolly did it back in fifth grade. No, sorry, Stewart Striders was the fifth grade jogging club. But oh, I did cross country. Yes, I did cross country at Garfield. That's important because cross country at Garfield was the first time that I realized that I was gay. Only I didn't have the words for it then. I was in cross country. I had been making friends with this boy. I really liked him. He was like the first friend that I felt like I really had, and that we just vibed on a completely different level. And then I feel really bad because he asked me if I wanted to go see a movie, and I was like, "Oh yeah, sure." Like, yeah, that sounds fun. He's like, "So you want to go on a date?" This was seventh or eighth grade. I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Um, and then like just going on a date with a boy just made complete sense to me, and I really liked him. And but I made the mistake of telling Randy and Greg that I agreed to go on a date with a boy. And you don't understand how bad being gay was. It was the worst possible thing you could be. I didn't really understand what it meant. No one would ever explain what being gay was. I didn't understand what it was until high school. But they went and talked to the coach, and it was this whole thing. And he quit the team. And then I didn't see him again. Not even in school. He was just gone. Greg was very homophobic. On the radio, they'd listen to queer bashing. The radio host would talk about how, thank goodness that these queers are dying of AIDS. God's given them what they deserve. I remember like one year, like I asked for an easy bake oven because I like baking. And Brenda was going to get me one, but Greg said, no, that's fucking gay. And like there's certain clothing choices that he wouldn't let Brenda buy for me, like turtleneck sweaters, because he's like, no, a faggot wears that. He'd always talk about how he'd rather have a dead son than a gay son. Being gay was the worst thing you could possibly be. Going to come back to that later in adulthood, just to fully illustrate how fucking terrible Southwest Ohio is. At least the way I experienced it. But yeah, being gay was terrible for me. There were a couple of other gay kids in high school, but we'll get to that later. What else happened at Garfield? Did band, did the parade, got heat stroke marching the band uniform, and 105-degree weather for the 4th of July parade. Had to go to the hospital and have them pump me full of fluids and electrolytes. It was fun. Anything else happened at Garfield? No, Mrs. Majors. Eighth grade, nothing. It was just me struggling to get by. Okay. Freshman school. So the middle schools used to be 7 through 9, and the high school was 10, 11, 12. So it was at Garfield for 2 years. And like I said, that was great. That was the first time I was out of school for more than 1 year. There were other times when I wasn't even at the same school for a full year. But now they then all of a sudden opened a brand new freshman school because Fairfield had one. And they're like, okay, well, if Fairfield has a freshman school, we're going to make a freshman school too. So all the freshmen, so instead of the freshmen being in the 3 different middle schools anymore, because it was Garfield, Wilson, and GW, all the freshmen now got merged into the freshman school. So new school again. Freshman school was interesting. Did wrestling that year. To do wrestling that year, though, we went in and okay, so freshman school. Home life was terrible. I had gotten a taste of if I do extracurriculars, then I spend less time at home. So my idea was do all the fucking extracurriculars and never fucking be at home. because being at home was terrible. That stupid lounge system ended, so I could actually like go and talk to people during cafeteria time, which was helpful. Um, and I just did a lot of extracurriculars. I did wrestling. To do wrestling, we went. We had to catch the bus after school to go up to the high school because the buses stopped at the freshman school, then go to the high school before they drop everyone else off. Um, I did it for 1 year, in like a for first full year. I really liked it. Um, I enjoyed the physical, the feel. It wasn't sexual for me, and even though I do BJJ, like it's not sexual at all. It's just like a game and physical activity and learning my body and mentally going through the rotations. I just enjoy the feel of it. But it was in the locker room afterwards where the guys would literally start talking about like how they trim their dicks to fuck their girlfriend and like comparing the size of their dicks. And all of a sudden I started getting hard hearing them talk about that and just like trying to like stare at my locker and not look around, and hormones were flaring, and I just like I don't know what's going on. But it's not safe. So I almost quit, but I somehow managed to go and find a girl to be my beard, which is funny because it ended up she was a lesbian and I was her beard as well. Her name was Connie. Uh, she was my lifeline in high school. Yeah, Connie Crum. Even brought her to wrestling practice to be like, look, I have a girlfriend. She's coming to wrestling practice and watching me practice. I was a shitty wrestler. I had from being inside so much, I had no hand-eye coordination. I could barely move my body, and I was socially awkward as fuck from the lack of socialization plus my autism. So, and plus I was heavy and fat from the meds that they pumped me on to try to counter all the stuff. It was terrible. Like I was groggy. I couldn't think in class. I was just falling asleep left and right. It was horrible. But the meds also had me gain weight. I was so big. I was literally pushing 300 pounds back in eighth into ninth grade. I was in like the extra large pants, had like a 42-inch waist. I was a freshman in high school. Just like really fat. I was so big that I got stretch marks on my all the way down from my arms, just like because I was just fat and eating, and my skin couldn't grow fast enough, and I just literally watched the stretch marks like go farther and farther down because I was just trying to survive off bags of chips and like whatever cheap junk Randy bought, just because she didn't want to cook. When she tried to cook, it really tasted bad. She'd yell at us when we'd try. Stacy got traumatized for that more. I got traumatized over the laundry and the dishes. Stacy got traumatized over the dishes and cooking because Greg was pissed at her the one time he tried to cook. Sorry, John. I still get them mixed up sometimes. I don't know. It's like at different moments in hindsight, I can see a more feminine energy that was manifesting inside of them. But at other moments, they were still my brother. And I don't fully know how to explain that. That's why when she came out to me, when she said she was trans, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like it wasn't a complete shock. Like on some level, it made sense because I knew that like he was my brother, but like he never fully felt masculine to me in the way that I'm masculine, or I knew other people to be masculine, but I didn't really know what that was. Completely separate side rant. I still struggle with pronouns and name juggling between the two sometimes. Um, But yeah, freshman school. So I did wrestling. I did it for that 1 year, and I stuck it out. It was really good. And then started doing show choir. Uh, they started a new show choir with the freshmen, and so the freshmen and the sophomores did show choir together, and then the juniors and seniors did a different show choir at the high school. I did theater, which was also run by the choir teacher, Mr. Berkemeyer. Another fucking asshole. He ended up getting caught though. Oh yeah, theater. Theater was rough in high school. With this drama camp. Sorry, I'm merging it. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to stick to freshman school. I mean, I was brilliant as a student. We had geometry. English was somehow my best class that year. I hated my geometry teacher. She taught us in the dark on a projector that wasn't dim enough, and I wasn't near the front. So it was just dark and cold, and I just fall asleep and couldn't focus in geometry class. But I got the proofs. I did the stuff, and she just had this horrible voice. But the English teacher was really cool. Somehow the science teacher, Mrs. Carlson, I was just manic around her, and I don't know why. Like just like being in physics class just like made me so excited. Like talking about it was physical science. And I just got like I was manic in that class in hindsight, and I didn't know why. Part of me even thought like it was some sort of game show where like the two of us were like role playing on something. I was a really weird time in my life, but I didn't understand what was happening. But also like the medication from the morning would start that I took in the morning would start wearing off about then too. So it's like I go to school, I'm really groggy from all the medication that is like I'm doped up on. Then after lunch, it starts wearing off, and then like I spring back. The meds just fucked me up. They were terrible. Didn't do a damn thing. Remember after they had me on clonidine, which was just like a heart medication just to slow your heart rate. Because that's what you give an ADHD kid is you just physically slow their heart down. Because that'll fix autism. And that'll fix child abuse. Yeah. Brilliant fucking doctors. Such well-educated idiots. That's the thing about modern medicine. Pills just treat symptoms. Like antibiotics will treat a root cause. I mean, if you got an infection, go take a fucking antibiotic. But all the psychiatric drugs, so much other stuff, very rarely are they treating actual root causes. All this chemical imbalance shit is just because doctors think they understand brain chemistry, but they don't understand behavioral science at all. Because doctors are just trained to push pills and cut shit out. They're not trained to actually think about why the body is making these chemicals in the first place or how to restore balance at all, which is what I learned from yoga and from psychology. But yeah, made it through freshman year. And then 10th grade. 10th grade. Tenth grade. Early on in the year, that's when Randy kicked me out. But there had been a lot leading up to it. She was just going haywire more and more often. My emotional state was just getting worse. I was actively starting to get sick of it. By that point, I'd start acting up just because I was so over it. I hated her. She didn't get as doped up anymore, especially when she was off the Xyrem, and they switched her from opioids at that point to something else. So she didn't really have the doped up recovery phases anymore. She just had the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde phases. It's just like I was just this one raw, open wound that was just screaming and couldn't hold anything together. Like if she'd tell me to do the dishes, I just wouldn't do it. If she told me to take the dog out, I just ignored her. Be like, there's no point. You're just going to go off anyway. But like I said, like before I go on for this story, I do want to take a little bit of time to talk about some of the times that were good. Because like I said, that she was both Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So on the flip side, she always tried to genuinely make me happy for my birthday. Making like my birthday cake was, or getting my birthday cake made was a really important thing for her. Or doing like the cupcakes for school. I remember like she'd get like the special cake molds. One year it was like when Harry Potter came out, it was like a Harry Potter cake mold. and she got like the strawberry cake mix because I wanted the strawberry cake. And she made like the cake mix and poured it in the mold and then put like the icing on it, and spent a lot of time like doing like the icing in the different colors. It's sort of like a paint by number thing, where like you had a picture of where, and it told you like what colors of icing to put on different stuff, and you just sort of squeezed it out like drop by drop over it. So other year she went to like a baker and like had them make me like a penguin cake. It was like decorated like penguins like running around in a winter wonderland. There was part of her that did try. I remember one year, it's probably why I liked baking, is because that was like one of the few things that she ever actually did to show me that she actually loved me, was bake the cakes and the cupcakes. That's why I still love making them. So it was the only way I can remember the part of her that actually cared about me. Even making the cookies Christmas Eve for Santa was enjoyable with her. Christmas was the one time she never fucked up because that was too important to her to nail and do right. But it was also, they would go all out, spending so much money on toys and gifts and shit that we just throw out within a few months. In hindsight, it's just, and it was weird. It's like, it's almost like she was using the gifts to offset her guilt for what she knew she was doing the rest of the year. But then she made us feel guilty because of the debt they took out with like the Christmas clubs and the savings to get us those gifts. And so we ended up just resenting the fact that they even got us to them and not wanting them, which then made them pissed that we didn't use the gifts we got them. And it was just this whole loop. It was a really fucked up dynamic. But she tried. I mean, there was part of her that did try. I remember even one time, it was in school, and somehow like I had lost track of a geography project, and I told her that like what was going on and that like I just messed up a geography project, and her response was literally to go and make a cake. And this is the one time she got Greg to fucking do something, because dude was a useless piece of shit. But this one time she had him go on his computer and print out a map of the United States. And they put the map of the United States on, then they traced the state map on with some permanent marker over wax paper, then put the wax paper on top of the cake that she baked and punched out the lines with a toothpick to sort of make a dot map on the top of the cake, and then like did icing to like color in the different stuff of the different states on it, and said, here, take this to class. I was like, oh cool, a cake. And Greg actually did something. He never did anything except make that one cake. And by help, I mean printed something off of his computer and then left. Yeah, I got an A for that project. So like I said, like, as bad as things were, and things got very bad, things were always so bad. But there were times when they were somewhat normal. And So 10th grade. Like I said, I had Pam, that case manager, for a few years now. At this point, she knew everything that was going on. She knew how bad it was. But she kept telling me, because of the laws in the state of Ohio, the judge isn't going to emancipate me because the judge didn't believe in emancipation for anyone. And the laws were written so strictly to keep the family unit together in Ohio that there was nothing she could do. But she would always tell me, like, that house is the worst place in the world for you. But there's nothing I can do except take me to Golden Corral. She would always tell me that I was the only one of her clients that she took to Golden Corral. She'd tell me, like, all the other clients get McDonald's, but you get Golden Corral. But leading up to it, though, she finally decides to try something. She decides to try an intervention because things had gotten worse. And she calls a family meeting. She gets Randy, Greg, me, and John in the same room. And she just sort of says, I know what's going on. I know this is terrible. Will you all go to family therapy? Because, like, she's a social worker, like she's my social worker assigned to me, partly because of the autism, but also still stemming from that school incident from Garfield and Mrs. Major's class. And Greg, John, and I'll say yes, but Randy just gets up, looks completely angry. She's clearly been triggered and is going into a Mr. Hyde moment. But she can't do that in public in front of this woman. She just looks at her and says, no, and walks away. And then we all just sit there quiet for a while. And then Pam leaves. It wasn't too much longer after that. I had come home from school. Randy and Greg were screaming and arguing about money like they always did. They were always so bad with money. It's part of why they kept having to move around so much. It was such a bad argument, Greg walked out and left because he just couldn't keep arguing with her anymore. But she wasn't done, so she just turned around to me, started screaming at me, started hitting me like she always did. But after Greg just walked out, I was like, okay, I'm out of here. I'm done. So I walked out, and I didn't know where to go, but I wasn't going back there. So I walked to Nanny's house. You got to remember, Shandon, so Nanny lived like just outside Shandon. So to get there from Hamilton, I walked down Alert New London Road. So I walked from Oakmont Drive to New London, and then just walked all the way down New London. It's a 30-minute drive, but it took hours, and it was at night in the dark. Just me walking down a long country road. I actually almost missed Shandon because at one point I was like, I feel like I should be here already, but everything's dark and it's not looking like the way I remember. So I walked up to like this rural country house and just knocked on the door at like it was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, pitch dark, and just knocked. And I was like, "Where's Shandon?" And the man in the answer was like, "You're in it. What's going on?" It's like, "I'm trying to get to my grandmother's house. I just needed to know where I was in Shandon." He's like, "Just keep going straight. It's the next block, and then you'll get. It's not the next block. The next street over. Just turn right." Just because I didn't know where I was. And then when I got to Nanny's house, it was Nanny and Jean were there. Nanny was frantic. Apparently, they had called her and told her I had ran away. And she was saying how she didn't think I'd go there after everything. But she called them, told them I was there, and then drove me back. Greg was apparently an emotional mess. Randy was, she knew she had fucked up, but she didn't want to admit it. But Greg was an emotional mess when I got back. I never actually knew he cared. He apparently was so stressed that on the cupboard, like right inside the front door in the formal living room, he'd apparently like wrote a prayer to God in like in his blood, like he literally like pricked his blood to like sign like a prayer to God, begging for God to like have me come back because he was that worried that he'd never see me again. I was like, where the fuck did this come from? I wasn't trying to worry anybody. I was done taking it. It was done. It was only about another month after that I came home from school one day, just walked in the door, and Randy was already in a fit again. Started screaming at me and hitting me the moment I walked through the door. And I just broke away. I just couldn't take it, and I just broke away from her and ran downstairs, trying to get to my bed. And she followed me down, kept doing it. And then I just turned around. I don't know what came over me, but I just turned around and looked her dead in the eye. And I just screamed at her, "I'm not a fucking worthless piece of shit like you always tell me I am. And you're not going to hit me anymore." And she was stunned. Completely stunned. It took her a couple minutes because her eyes were just. But then she came back into it, just glared at me and gritted through her teeth, "Get out of my house." And then Greg drove me to Brenda's. Brenda lived on Beeler Street. Uh, it was just a couple minutes over in town. And that was that. I was gone. Brenda just lived in a one-bedroom little cottage house on Beeler. So I slept on the pull-out couch for the year I was with her. While I was there, I had to drop a lot of extracurriculars so I can go get a job at the McDonald's across the street from the high school. It was my second job. My first job was at a movie theater. I wasn't there very long because I did not learn my filter yet. And when Brokeback Mountain came out, uh, there were like, and we were cleaning up after Brokeback Mountain. Um, we found like used condoms in the theater afterward. And I was just a little kid and I was like, what is going on? But then, like, later on for another movie, like, I had let it slip in front of some customers that we did that, and that got back to management, and then they let me go. Because, like, no, you can't tell customers that. I was like, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I did not have a filter then. So my first job was a movie theater that I got fired from because I told the customers about the condoms we found during Brokeback Mountain. Um, um, second job was McDonald's. McDonald's. I was a good worker. I worked hard and I showed up. That was the perfectionism. He's trying to get people to love me by doing a good job. It taught me how to put up with bullshit and show up with people and somehow get things done despite complete chaos. Oh my God. Like there was Big John, who had Down syndrome, but he washed the dishes. There was Deirdre, who we called Granny, who was schizophrenic. There was, because I worked the night shift because it was after school. And then like there was like all these like constant rotating people of like with some various form of like mental illness or issue that we're just constantly churning through, and somehow we were just trying to get burgers out on time. And meanwhile there was just a handful of high school kids that were working the night shift, and because most of the high school kids worked like the day shift on the weekends, but for some reason I just worked the night shift. So I'd just go there after school, and I ended up closing a lot, even though like I legally wasn't supposed to. But the permit I got but when I got the permit from the board to go work, they just didn't check a box or whatever, or the managers didn't care. So they always scheduled me to close because I did a good job closing. I would actually like clean according to the procedures they told me to and do my best to sort things out so that the day shift people like weren't screwed the next morning. So once they saw that, they just kept scheduling me to close. But I did lose some weight because being at Brenda's, the bus wasn't really a good option with the timing. So I ended up just biking. And because I couldn't take the bus home, I ended up biking. So I'd bike from Brenda's on Beeler to the high school, and then ride it over to work afterward, and then bike back to her house after work. McDonald's was disgusting. Oh my God. To this day, like it took me like the things that I saw in that McDonald's and the worms that would crawl up through the pipes into the ice trays and the insects and the flies and how everything is made. Oh my God, it was so bad. People have no idea what they were eating. but it's like it's what they told us to do, and there's nothing I could do about it. It was really funny though. This one time, there was this girl that worked there for a little bit, and her mom had worked there for a while. But when she got hired, it was weird because like the mom and the daughter were working in the same McDonald's, and then the mom came in and said, "You know, it's funny that you're working here now because you were conceived in the break room." And the daughter just looked embarrassed, and everyone else just started laughing. McDonald's was a chaotic nightmare. It's also the first time I had sex. Yeah, first time I had sex was giving a blowjob to one of the guys that was a line cook in the bathroom. That was at McDonald's, and like one of the team leads was like turned into my total fag hag, and she had a gay best friend, and like we would hang out talking about things in high school. No, sorry. First time I had sex was with her friend. Sorry, she had set me up on a date with her friend who was in Ross. We went on one date. Um, we saw a movie, and then like we attempted blowjobs in his car afterward, but didn't really go well. The second time I had sex was with the line cook, because I was like, well, I had sex, but I wanted to try it more, and he was straight, but he was curious about trying it with a guy. So yeah, second time I had sex was blowing him in the bathroom. I was just young and confused, just trying everything. Didn't have sex again until college with my first boyfriend. Um, but yeah, high school is when I was like, okay, I'm gay. Um, but it was still very much like trying to figure it out, and there weren't really outlets, and I didn't know what to do. But yeah, so living with Brenda, things got awkward with Brenda because, like I said, I'm working after school. I'm trying to do extracurriculars. At this point, I stopped going to the boat because at one point Nanny left the boat and started going to the Hamilton Vineyard because her and Gene walked in on the pastor cheating on his girlfriend with having sex with another woman um, in the sanctuary while they were cleaning it. Yeah, Wayne Pace was womanizing piece of shit. Um, and so she took me to the Hamilton Vineyard, but then she wasn't there very long, so she left to a different church. But I just kept going to the Hamilton Vineyard because it was a nice big church in town, and I loved Tim Tilney. I wanted Tim Tilney's job. Tim Tilney was the children's pastor and the administration pastor, so he ran the children's program, but he also like ran all the administration for the entire building. Like there was a head pastor, but the head pastor just gave the sermons and was like theoretically in charge, but Tim Tilney ran everything. Yeah, Pastor Ken like didn't understand how the computers or the lights or money or anything of that worked. It was all Tim Tilney, and Ken like had like the deeper like Ken like had some good spiritual insight. He was an Air Force veteran, but he didn't understand how to politically hold a church together, like through the various factions, or how to actually run the thing day to day. And Tim's like, I'm a children's pastor. I don't want to teach the adults. So the two of them, it was almost kind of like Germany, where like you had Otto von Bismarck as the chancellor, and then you had the Kaiser is separate, and the Kaiser like has the legal formal authority, but like behind the scenes, no, it's all on Bismarck. That's kind of like what their dynamic was. But I wanted Tim Tilley's job because it was great. Um, like I started working. They had like this thing called Awana. It was like church Cub Scouts that did on Wednesday night. that like in high school, like I taught like the kids there. I volunteered in the nursery during Sundays and like did shifts there. I don't know why I just always loved kids and like helping take care of them. Probably because like I never actually got to take care of my little brother. I just loved, but I also just loved like being around Tim. Tim was kind of like a surrogate father to me in a lot of ways. He'd even like drive me home sometimes and just talk with me after church. No one else did that, not to that extent. The youth pastor Jim, he was okay. He tried, um, but not the same way that Tim did. You'd have to ride my bike over the vineyard sometimes, and that was completely across town. But I lost the weight from all the biking. I lost the weight. Yeah, Brenda's, it was its own challenge. Somehow, by virtue of me being there, the dynamic between Brenda and Randy flipped. All of a sudden, before it was Brenda was sort of this nagging, annoying presence, but because she was now in effect sheltering me, Randy, when I wasn't there and Randy wanted to go off, she would go off on Brenda. And she started being physically abusive with Brenda. And she would come over and do all sorts of other really cruel things. Like this one time, uh, by dumb luck, like Brenda and I both got home at the same time. Me getting home, like I was pulling up from on my bike from work right as she was getting back because she worked at Fort Hamilton Hospital. She was a monitor tech at Fort, and the dog Spot was just chained to the fence on her front porch, like skin to skin, chained to where he could not move, just screaming bloody murder to her front porch. Randy had come over and chained the dog to her front porch, making a scene for everybody just to try to get back at me. Apparently, she even brought John along with her, and John's told me how like that was traumatic, and he didn't understand what the fuck was going on. But Brenda and I get back, and the dog is just chained there, screaming, hurting. It's in an awkward position. It can't move. It's terrified. Because neither one of us was there when she wanted to do something. This other time, I was just home one day and she called and she had told me that another one of the cats had eaten antifreeze. Nala. I love that cat too. She was a gorgeous little cream cat. And she asked me if I wanted to see it before it died. So she brought it over and I took care of it for a little bit until it died. I don't know it for a fact. I wasn't there, but I firmly believe that she's the one that kept feeding the cats antifreeze. She'd always say it was a neighbor, like, oh, somehow they just got out and some neighbor just must have done it. With Yappy, I believed it. With Nala, I didn't. Not after Spot. Not after coming back and Spot the dog is chained to the fence. And now I'm sitting here watching another animal die of antifreeze just conveniently after that. I don't believe it. Brenda also got two dogs named Lucy and Ricky. I hated them, but it wasn't her fault. She worked all day at Fort. I was away at school and then work. No one was ever allowed to let them out, so they just shit and pissed everywhere, and she didn't want to clean it up. And my nose just burned having to breathe in all of the urine constantly. There's nothing I could do. Just like still 16 years old and still living and breathing in dog piss. Just made me fucking hate dogs. They just piss and shit everywhere, and they eat cats. And even Nanny, like the neighbor's dog Mike, had Dalmatians, and Nanny was walking down the road one day, and his Dalmatian just like randomly ran out of his yard and bit a hole out of Nanny's thigh. She's like, well, at least he paid to have me get new windows for it. But like, our dog just randomly bit your thigh and you had to have surgery and couldn't walk for months because you just tore a chunk out of it. Fucking hated dogs. Even to this day, like I can tolerate dogs now because like I've seen enough friends that have okay dogs. I've only ever met like one dog I actually liked. I'll talk, but I never want a dog. Maybe an outside dog if it never comes in the house. And I literally mean never. Spent too much of my life breathing in dog piss to ever live with a dog again. But even Brenda had her breaking point. After about a year, it was junior year, like I've known how things have been going. Randy had been coming over to, and I wasn't there, and being even more abusive with her. Walked home. She was upset. I could tell something had happened, but I could tell it was different this time. So I asked her if I could keep living there. And Brenda looked me in the eye and said I needed to learn that life was tough. So she let me borrow a Rubbermaid bin. She made very clear I was only borrowing it and I had to return it to put my stuff in. Because remember, like I slept on the pull-out couch that had to get pulled away. I had like a little clothes rack in the back, but I didn't have a room or a place to put things when I was living there. Everything I had fit in a Rubbermaid basket. So I put in the basket I was borrowing and put it on my bike and walked down the street. I taught Sunday school, taught Wednesday night school. I was in honors classes. I was on honor roll. Held down a job. Still did show choir. I'm just walking my bike down the street one day. Brenda tried. She cared. She liked me. I don't know that she loved me, but she at least liked me. She just couldn't take it anymore. She just couldn't take it. Well, it is 6:45, and yoga here starts at 7:30. And I need some time to do some container skill to put this back in before yoga. And we do another full day of soma. So I will pick this up later. See ya.